23 minutes before 8 here on the program, mining house Amplats has held a meeting with mine workers yesterday to try and resolve an impasse that saw more than 600 miners being dismissed. The mine workers had taken part in a strike at the Matotolo Mine in Limpopo last week. The miners who were fired have now taken the matter to the Labour Court, claiming they had a certificate granting them permission to strike. Workers say they downed tools after changes to their medical aid benefits and conditions of employment. Amplats, however, argue that the transfer of employees from Glencore to Anglo American Platinum was carried out according to law. Mammetlwe Sebei, president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, or GIWUSA, is here to chat about this issue. Amplats has also been invited, but we have been told that the CEO will respond at a later date. Good to have you. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
So let's talk to some developments on this story. What has happened? Obviously, the firing happened last week. You were telling me that it's more than 600. In fact, we're talking more, 900 of employees have actually been fired.
Yes, I mean, the brief I got from the brand leadership is that we have over 900 members, and all of them have been fired, to the best of our knowledge. And, you know, we've been invited to make submission regarding an appeal against their dismissal, and that's a process that we've embarked on. But more than that, we've been having negotiations with the company to try to solve that and the underlying problems in that mine.
Yeah. So what actually happened? How did the mine justify firing your members, saying it was an illegal strike?
Well, we obtained a strike certificate from the CCMA, and the mine, and we argue without properly notifying the union, you know, applied to court for interdict. One of the arguments that I made is that the only registered place of business for GIWUSA is its head office in Germiston. We never received any notification, which is where they must serve us for the purpose of litigation. As you know, we do with all companies. You don't serve them at branch offices. When you do serve the company, is the registered place of office, which is normally the head office. Now, we are obviously challenging that, but we are also, notwithstanding that process, engaged in the negotiations to try and find a common ground on substantial issues that prompted a declaration of dispute and, of course, the strike in the mine.
Yeah. From our understanding, the mine issued the interdict just a day before the strike.
Yes, and as I've said, we were not probably served and notified so far as we are concerned. Now, the issues, you know, have been there since late last year when Amplats took over Matotolo Mine from Glencore. And the issues that we have seen is basically restructuring of the mine with, you know, a downward variation of the conditions of employment. For instance, you know, the medical aid of the workers is offering less benefits than it was under Glencore. Our members' families are not covered. There is the issue, obviously, of, you know, rate of payment. Workers that are working long hours, they feel that their conditions have become worse under Anglo Platinum. And of course, there's also the issue of Provident Fund, where we, or at least our members, are no longer confident that their Provident Funds and every benefit that they've accumulated over years of service are secure. And therefore, you know, they are saying that they are opposed to restructuring because this was Section 197 transfer, where you take the business as a going concern with all conditions of employment as they were before the takeover. And this is not
so
what
this
has
is
been
the biggest sticking point that the union is fighting for. It's the whole issue of the medical aids and also the issue of the provident funds. Now, you had a meeting yesterday. How did that go? Where are we now at this stage? Because this is now a development from last week where, as you say, about 900 members of your union were fired. You had this meeting. What transpired?
Well, our argument basically is that we can't negotiate with, you know, a gun held over our head. And part of it is that we've demanded that the mine must, you know, remove all the threats. You know, one of that is the application for a contempt of court I understand that they wrote a letter, we threw in that application, we are saying that they must set aside all the dismissals of workers, and we begin to now negotiate on the very issues that led to a declaration of dispute. We have, as a union, particularly given the gravity of the matter, escalated the issue. We have deployed the Secretary General of the Federation, Zwelinzima Vavi, who is at the mine, as I'm talking to you, has been negotiating with the mine company along with the leadership of the branch there to ensure that the legitimate and the just demands of our members for a transfer without any downward variation in terms of conditions of their employment is actually what is implemented. And of course, we re-establish the relationship with the mine on the basis that is very just for our members, and none of their conditions of employment are altered in any meaningful way.
Yeah. When we look at the miners at the moment, I mean, mines around South Africa are struggling, and we know this. And this is basically bringing their production to a halt. And Amplats, one of the biggest suppliers of platinum in the country, and most of their underground staff, which belong to your union, are no longer working. So it's a detrimental effect to both the mine and the workers because they're not getting any money now. How long can we expect this to go on for? And at the end of the day, how are your members surviving?
I mean, firstly, let's be clear about it. I mean, people have this idea that it pleases us, to be calling strikes all the time. We do that because, we have no any other option. Secondly is that you are right. The industry is in crisis, but more than that, it is an industry that has been making their crisis our members' crisis. Lest we forget that, when these mining companies were making super profits, it's not like our members' conditions were ever addressed. They refused even at that time when they were making huge amounts of profits, billions of rand, to grant a decent conditions of employment. The level of wages, the level of benefits for our members in the mining and other sectors of economy remains appalling. We have not as yet, 25 years into this democracy, made a meaningful headways in dismantling the system of a cheap black migrant labor which continues to underpin South African capitalism. And we are saying basically that if the mining industry can afford decent wages for our members, if South African capitalism cannot afford the legitimate demands of our members, we can't afford them. We can't afford their system. And that's the reason that we continue to campaign for nationalization of the mining industry under a democratic workers and control of the working class, in order therefore that this industry, along with other key sectors of the economy, can be planned and managed in the interest of the workers who make the wealth in the economy, but also in the interest of the whole country. We believe this country is rich enough to meet and to guarantee everyone in this country a decent conditions of life, but for a parasitic system which enrich the few at expense of the overwhelming majority of the population.
Yeah. So let's end off the interview with a where to from now. You talked to us when Nzima Vavi is there negotiating. What would you be happy with in order to get the workers back and just bring this deal about that both parties can be happy? Again, you're still sticking by what you're requesting with regard to the medical aids to go back to the way it was under Glencore.
And actually we are saying that if there should be any change, it should be improvement. We want a better medical aid for our members. We want a better provident fund condition for our members. We want better and decent wages for our members and raise of pay and so on. And we are saying, if Anglo Platinum is not prepared to address that, obviously we're going to be escalating. We'll be mobilizing local communities to ensure that they support the workers. We would be mobilizing the whole federation. We'll be mobilizing international solidarity to make sure that this campaign is mounted and escalated up until such time that Anglo meet a legitimate, and I must say, very modest demands of our members who do not want to live in luxury. They're not looking, for a house in Sandton. They're not looking for, millions that Anglo is paying its CEOs and so on and so on. They are not looking for, a medical aid that would guarantee them, first world quality healthcare somewhere in Europe, which is where their shareholders have been treated. No, we just want a decent conditions of employment where our members, their families, can be able to access a quality health system, where our members can be paid duly for the hard work that they do in the mine, and of course, their provident fund improved to ensure that when they go on retirement, they are able to live decently with their families for their lifelong labor.
Indeed.
In the worst conditions of the underground mining.
Is there anything we should immediately look forward to, is what I'm saying, as a development on this? When can we get an announcement or some sort of development after the meeting yesterday?
The meeting is continuing today.
Okay.
We're hoping that management will meet the demands of the workers, but failing which, we are certainly escalating up until those demands are met.
All right.
And justice is assured for our members.
Thank you for talking to us here on the program. Mammetlwe Sebei, he's the president of the General Industries Workers Union of SA, that's GIWUSA, talking about the dismissal of over, as he puts it, 900 striking Anglo Platinum workers at the Matotolo Mine in Limpopo. We take a break. Languages under discussion after this. Stay tuned.